Hey everyone, Pugs here with a new review for y'all. Today I'm clearly covering yet another special episode because this latter half of season 3 has lots of them. And today's special episode is Ugh, also known as SpongeBob BC before comedy. I always thought that was a neat little joke. As you can see, I'm quite prepared to get into this review. I've already got my visuals all set up here. I cannot believe I was able to find a prehistoric Gary vector. Shout out to the Adventures of Gary the Snail wiki, for real. Also, love the name of that. Sounds like a fun wiki. I suppose since I'm explaining my visuals today, I'll also say that the background image here is an image from the episode, though I edited it to better fit my normal background theming. Okay, I think that's it for the visuals. Big thanks goes out to those of y'all watching today. And without further ado, let's just get right into this review. Potentially hot take. Ugh is the best special of season 3. In general, I've gotten the vibe that the specials from this season have not been received very well. And, well, that's an understandable opinion. So perhaps maybe a hotter take is me saying that I really like Ugh. Because it's true, I do. I mean, beating out the other two specials of the season isn't even that hard to do anyway, so maybe this really is the hotter take. I guess that counts as a spoiler for my opinion of The Sponge Who Could Fly, but I mean, my opinion on that episode has got to be obvious by this point. Anyway, we're here to talk about Ugh, so let me talk about Ugh. I really enjoy the concept of this episode. It's so fun! Showcasing SpongeBob SquarePants in a prehistoric setting is simply a neat idea, and I like that even the live-action segments get in on this too. Though, actually, small side note, but I really love how when we have live-action segments, they complement the animated portions very nicely, since it's usually Patchy taking part in something similar to whatever's going on in the main episode. Not always, of course, but frequently this is the case. As the show has gone on, the Patchy segments have become less parallel adventures and more interwoven with the plot of the animated portion, and I like that too. I just like many of the things this show does. But anyway, back to talking about the live-action segments specific to this episode. I think they're really funny. And the low production values really add to the comedy here. Like, the papier-mâché dinosaur is intrinsically hilarious to me. And speaking of that dinosaur, the part where Patchy falls over and has to be helped by two aides is so funny. Like, I'm dying of laughter every time. I also really like the whole element of the future versus past that the live-action segment has. It helps to make the segment stand out, and it helps bolster Patchy and Potty's banter, which is always a treat to watch. I really like the cut to SpongeBob getting chills from their argument, especially the bit where SpongeBob's like, and the parrot is winning. And then to kind of skip to the end a bit, I really liked the When Worlds Collide song. It's deliciously camp, and stupid, and hilarious, all in one. But above all, it's a jam too. Exactly the kind of foolishness I've come to expect from the live-action segments. And it's one of the best things to ever grace television. So, enough said. And now that I've finished discussing the live-action part of this episode, let me move on to the part of the episode that I'm sure that more people are interested in, the animated portion. I like how Ugh opens with the French narrator getting just a bit too into the epicness of the landscape, but speaking of the landscape, one thing I love about Ugh is its commitment to the bit. The bit in this case being the prehistoric aesthetic it's got going on. The artist clearly put a lot of effort into this prehistoric landscape, and it shows. The backgrounds of this episode, while admittedly, but understandably using somewhat bland colors, are very well done. And I admire this commitment to the bit when we meet the characters and don't hear a lick of English, or, I'm assuming, any other language in the dubbed versions. Because that specific language hasn't been invented yet, so it just makes sense. Clearly, SpongeBob, Patard, Squog, as I'll be referring to the characters in this episode, have some kind of language though, which makes sense. There's a lot I could talk about with that, and I'm not even a linguistics person, but let me not go on that tangent. Let's just say this makes things easier for the audience. For obvious reasons, this episode is not exactly full of the wordplay and wordy humor that I love, and so it might come as a surprise that I like this episode so much, and that I find this episode to be funny anyway. But I mean, when you put all your effort into writing good visual gags and good slapstick, sometimes good is just gonna be good, And so I find myself laughing at this episode even when it doesn't have my preferred brand of humor. And this is true in general, but I think this episode really emphasizes that considering the complete lack of oral language in these animated portions, and lots of body language though, lots and lots of body language. There's lots of clever jokes in this episode too, like I really like the bit of Squog choosing a club and then the one he doesn't choose feeling dejected. I like the introductions for each character in this episode, because despite this episode taking place millions of years in the past, these are essentially the same characters we know and love, just perhaps with some changes. like prehistoric Gary being enormous. I find the friendship between SpongeGar and Patar to be portrayed quite wholesomely in this episode, and this extends to their friendship with Squog too. And I should say that these beginning scenes have some good examples of slapstick as well, like with Patar, quote-unquote, hugging Squog, and Squog slipping all over the prehistoric Gary's slime trail. Despite being a special, Ugg has a very simple plot, meaning that there's really not all that much for me to talk about. This is a very slow episode, which I think is a problem for some people, but not for me, because it works perfectly, in my opinion. I mean, it might as well be slow. It fits with the vibes, in my opinion. The basic plot, after these character introductions, is that the trio discover fire, and from there, we just get some scenes of them learning how to use it, particularly for cooking, and then trying to steal the fire for themselves. I really liked the eureka moment that SpongeGar had. I feel like that's one of the most memorable parts of the episode for me. Again, it's quite the slow build-up, at least relatively speaking for the standards of the show, but it works really well. I also loved the random inclusion of the barbershop quartet. This moment in general reminds me of the part where the narrator is giving a verbal drum roll in Krusty Krab training video. Same kind of slow build-up to ridiculous effect. I also thought that the montage of everyone eating had lots of great visual gags as well. Unfortunately, Ugg is not a perfect episode, and it begins to weaken a bit during Act 2, when SpongeGar, Patar, and Squog start fighting over the fire. This part of the episode wasn't particularly funny to me. Maybe it's because I was vibing with all of them vibing, and so the sudden conflict threw me off. And yeah, I know stories are supposed to have conflict, but in my opinion, that's bullshit. Sometimes I just want to see things going well, damn it. Anyway, this weak point of the episode doesn't last too long, and I do like the ending of it, and also of the animated portion in general, with SpongeGar and Patar roasting marshmallows over Squog's body, since I thought that was pretty funny. Also shows that even millions of years ago, Squidward will always be the ass of the joke. I guess one other small critique I have about Ugg is that it might have missed out on some potential storytelling opportunities. For example, the episode could have shown the rest of prehistoric Bikini Bottom. That would have for sure upped the pacing, but like I said earlier, I actually liked the pacing of this episode. And I also liked the story the crew decided to tell in this one, and the story they decided to tell left no room for that kind of exploration. So it's almost a non-issue for me. Perhaps my curiosity is left unsatisfied, but that doesn't really make the experience of watching this episode any worse for me. Closing things out now, I'll just say that Ugg is a fun and unique episode. Unique in this case meaning that it's different from other episodes of SpongeBob SquarePants, as I'm aware of the propensity of cartoon shows, especially of this early 2000s era, to make these kinds of episodes of previous eras of human history with their characters. And this isn't even the first time that SpongeBob SquarePants did this with prehistory, as SB129 famously did the same thing first. It's also not the only time SpongeBob SquarePants will play around with eras, as it will eventually do so again in Pests of the West. But no matter the case, I still really like this episode. It's funny, and it does a good job of immersing viewers in the prehistoric setting. It does, however, have a little bit of a dull spot in the middle, which does knock it down a tier, but that simply means that this episode is landing in my great tier, where it comes in with a score of 8.5 out of 10. Like usual, I'm ending this review with some closing thoughts of mine. You know, as I was recording the ending of that review, talking about how, the show has done the other different eras thing, I don't know. Clearly I'm having a not good time with my brain today, oh my god. Anyway, as I was recording that part, I was thinking of how the show is perhaps overdue for another episode of that kind. We've gotten prehistoric, we've gotten Old West, and we've gotten the future. I want to see SpongeBob in some other time periods. Is anyone with me? Or am I on my own? Though, I guess I should consider what time periods the show has to choose from that I'd actually be interested in. Victorian England would be cool, I guess. There's other time periods I can think of that would be not good for one reason or another, so maybe the show doesn't need to do this after all. Well, anyway, I guess this is the last special for a few weeks now, till I get to The Sponge Who Could Fly. That'll be an interesting one. I wonder how I'll spiff up my video visuals for that one. Maybe add some clouds or something? Ooh, a parachute on Gary? Wait, no, wings. Lots of thought. At this rate, I'm gonna spoil my entire design, so let me just go ahead and end things here, and I'll see y'all in the next review.